Hi guys, let's talk about tempera cakes. So with tempera cakes, you're gonna need more materials than you would for markers, crayons, or colored pencils. Obviously, you need your paints and you need your water and paintbrushes. There are 3 types of paintbrushes. There is a big paintbrush, those are the blue ones. They are big brushes, some of them are square shaped, some of them are round. There is a medium-sized brush, the yellow brush, and that is a square-shaped brush. And then our small red brush for details is a rounded brush. Other things that you might need, and I would suggest having with you on hand before you get started, is a towel and a plate. And I will show you how to use these appropriately and how not to use them. But first things first, I need thick paper for painting. And before I start painting, I really want to have my images drawn onto my paper already with pencil. Here would be an example of a 1 painting. Someone who's painting like a 1 is either using not enough water or too much water. Here's an example of someone using not enough water. You can tell that the painting is scratchy, and I'm also noticing that I'm not using my paintbrush correctly because I'm pressing down really hard and pressing all the way down to the metal part of my paintbrush. So when we're painting with paintbrushes, you should always only press the tip of the brush onto your surface. Another way that you can not use paint correctly is if you're using way too much water. And again, this is another example of how someone could press down way too hard. So we should never be pressing down that hard. If you notice that your paper is doing this, it's ripping up your paper. That's not how you should be painting. And that's not how you should be treating our paintbrushes. You can see there's actually bits of paper that are getting left in the paintbrush. So I don't want to see that. If I see you doing that and I see you doing it over and over again and not fixing that mistake, then maybe you just won't use paint. One other thing that I see people do that they should not do, and that would be like you using like a level 1, is when they take their towel and they wipe it. I'll show you what you should do instead of that. And again, you can see that this is just tearing up the paper. So that's definitely not how we want to use paints. Number 2 is you are using the correct size brush for what you are painting. I'm using this, but you can see that this brush actually isn't the correct size, like for getting into these small details here. So maybe a 2 means your color isn't even, right? So it's really light here and really dark here. You want your colors even. So this would still be a 2. This small red brush is for really, really, really tiny details. The correct brush for painting that 2 probably would have actually been this. I could have done it a lot smoother, right? My edge is not smooth. So here's what a 3 would look like. I would say I'm not gonna use my big brush at all. My big brush is really for just really, really big backgrounds. So I'm going to use, and I'm swirling gently. I'm not smashing my paintbrush down. Should never really see you ever smashing your paintbrush down. So making sure I have enough water. I'm going around my edges. I'm using the edge of my paintbrush. And if I notice it's getting scratchy, I'm using more water. I'm not pressing down hard, making sure, so I can tell my color is getting lighter. So I'm gonna go get some more water or maybe some more paint. I'm going around those edges. I'm making sure my green is staying a really even amount of green. If it's changing, I wanna make sure I either get more water or get more paint. You can see I'm just doing light layers. Really want to make sure I'm always reapplying my brush. All throughout your painting, you should be reapplying that brush with paint or water. And now if for any reason you feel like it's too wet, like I don't want to start painting this 3 right this second because my green is still wet. And if I start painting it right this second, it might bleed. So what I could do is just wait, blow on it, or instead of wiping it like I did up here, I can very gently dab it. I'm not doing this because that's gonna get green everywhere. I'm just picking up some of that excess water so that I can go ahead and start painting my 3. And really, most of the time you should be using your yellow brush for most of your painting. Remember, if your brush is too wet, you can use your towel. And I'm gonna use some red here. Notice how I'm keeping my palette clean. I'm not getting paint everywhere. For a 3 to really be a 3, we need to do what? Outline it. So now let's talk about outlining. When I'm outlining, I'm always using my skinniest red brush and I'm using my black paint. I don't want a lot of water, not too much water, because then it's gonna ooze out everywhere. I like to always have just like a blank piece of paper nearby, just like a scratch piece of paper, and test out to see how wet my paintbrush is. So that's pretty good. Here's a level 2 outlining. So you can see that my brush is scratchy and I'm not reloading it. I'm just gonna keep painting. That's not neat outlining. And I'm pressing down super hard. And you can see that I didn't even get enough paint there. So I'm pressing down super hard. So when you're outlining, you should never be pressing down hard. You should always just be touching the tip of your paintbrush to the surface. Let's show that again, but at a level 3. So I'm testing out my paintbrush. Always reapplying as I'm going. I'm reapplying very often, as much as I need it. I'm noticing I'm not pressing down super hard here, so I actually don't really need to reapply that much. I'm noticing the black's getting a little thinner though, and more see-through, translucent. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply more. And I'm going right over the line that I had previously drawn. So I'm noticing it's getting dry. So as you're painting, you should constantly be thinking to myself, do I need more water or do I need more paint? Do I need more water or do I need more paint? That would be a level 3 outline. For a 4, you might want to create and mix your own colors. Even if you're creating and mixing your own colors, if you're not painting it like a 3, you're not gonna get a 3 or a 4. So mixing your own colors doesn't necessarily guarantee you a 3 or a 4. Painting nice and neatly is what's gonna get you a 3 or a 4. So I'm gonna show you how to blend with paints. So you can blend one color into another. First thing I'm gonna do is add one color at the top. And usually if you're blending, you're gonna wanna use a big brush, and you would really only do blending in a really, really, really big area. Now I'm gonna do another color. I'm gonna add that to the bottom here. And how I blend is by taking a dry brush. So I'm gonna clean my brush off completely. And then I'm just gonna blend these two colors together. Sometimes I might need a little paint, and I'm just gonna blend those colors together really gently. Barely touching the paper. As you can see here, it goes from blue to purple, and I can even add, you know, a little bit more purple towards the bottom and keep blending until I get it to my desired blending. Remember, when I blend, I really shouldn't have any paint on my brush at all, and it should be pretty dry. So If I have a color left over on my brush, it's not gonna blend it. It's just gonna turn that part into the color that I don't want it to be. If I have blue on my brush and I'm trying to blend, the purple will turn into blue. Another technique that I see students really wanting to do is to splatter paint, and that should always be the last, one of the last steps, the step right before outlining. What you would do is you want to really make sure that you're covering up the spaces that you don't want splattered. And we're never, ever, ever using our fingers to touch the paintbrushes. Our fingers have natural oils on them, and it's going to clog up the paintbrushes and make them oily and gross. So if I'm wanting to splatter a color, I want to make sure that it's nice and wet, not too wet, but nice and wet. And then I just tap my paintbrush on my finger, and that's gonna allow the splattering to happen. And I can make it look like stars. And I'm just gently splattering. And I can't really do anything after this because I gotta let it dry for at least 24 hours. Well, not 24 hours, but a whole class period. The way that I mix colors is I don't want to go over my artwork, so I want to move my artwork to the side because I don't want to drip on it. And I take my big brush because that collects a lot of water at once. Okay, so I can mix very carefully this blue. And let's say before I go into the purple to add purple to this blue, what should I do first? Yes, that's right. I need to clean my paintbrush off first before I go grab another color to add to it. And even though I have green, I want to do a green that's different and special. And remember, you can add more than 2 colors together. I always have to clean my brush off first though, so I can even add a 3rd color. Now, just because I mixed with this paintbrush doesn't mean that's the one I should be using to paint. I still need to use the correct type of paintbrush for what I'm trying to do. One quick thing I want to show you is if you are wanting a really colorful background, you have a design already drawn on, I would do your background first. And then once it's dry, then you can add those details on top of that. One thing that people do is they do the details first and then they think about the background. But the background should actually be the first thing that you think about because it's going behind everything else. Everything else should go on top of that. By blending our colors, we go back and forth. We don't go in and out because then the colors will just all turn into one color and we don't want that. So we're blending the colors. You can see here I have like a line here where the orange and yellow start and stop, and I can kind of see where those colors end. I mean, your blending is not gonna be perfect, and that is okay. That is okay. So I'm just very lightly touching the page with my paintbrush right here. Barely touching it to get that blending effect. I'm always making sure that if I'm blending 2 colors that I am cleaning off and making sure my brush is the correct amount of wetness or dryness. And here I'm seeing that I want to blend that better. So blending is just something that you have to be ready to do, and it has to be something that has to be done within a certain amount of time. And you cannot just like take a break while blending because then the colors dry. Like if you're ready to blend colors, that needs to be what you're doing, and that's the only thing you're thinking about for the next few minutes until you're finished blending. You cannot multitask and blend. It doesn't really work that way because it dries very quickly and you need to work quickly. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go put this on the drying rack, or if you do this at the beginning of the class, you can set it to the side and start working on another drawing. But if it's in the middle or towards the end of class, you'd really wanna wait for this to dry until next class before you start painting on top of it, because blending can sometimes accidentally tear the paper up a little bit and you really wanna give it time to be totally dry.